What is going on, all you GBA tab people? This is Tom. I'm here bringing you guys our Week 10 match, the final week of the 9th season of the GBA, against Aaron Cybertron Zheng, someone who I've been genuinely interested in watching this season. Someone who obviously plays a way different format in terms of Mons than I'm used to, and someone who's very thoughtful. And while he may be, like uncomfortable or new to the singles format, just the way he approaches his match and thinks about his matches have been extremely interesting. And someone who, like I said, I've been enjoying watching this season, and even last season I wish I was able to play him. And I'm actually glad I'm getting the opportunity to play him this season. So I don't know if you guys have watched a lot of the other matches. I know those matches going up a little bit late, but a lot of the other matches this week were irrelevant, mostly because some coaches had been locked into their playoffs slots. Some coaches had already been locked into playoffs, so it was just about finishing out the season or completing your matches. And other matches were, I guess, just like two coaches that had already been knocked out. In this situation, in this match specifically, if I beat Cybertron, period, and Danza wins his match, Danza actually jumps Cybertron in terms of playoff slots, and Danza will make playoffs. Now, if I lose in any fashion, Danza actually gets knocked out of playoffs, and Cybertron maintains, I believe, the 4 seed because Jolt had already locked up the 1 seed or I guess the 2 seed, because Randy will be number 1, Joel will be number 2, Ash to be number 3, and then it comes down to either Aaron or Danza for the number 4 slot. And then the other division, we have Envy at the number 1 seed. We have number 2 at Tup because he won his division. Number 3 being Leo, who actually Envy and Leo swapped, even though obviously they both had really great seasons, and Lars at number 4. So that's kind of how the playoffs broke down for the most part. But like I said, for this match specifically, if I win and I beat Cybertron, he gets knocked out altogether, and Danza will actually jump and get locked into the 4 seed, which would be really impressive considering his very, very rocky start where he got 6-0'd and otherwise they started 0-4 or whatever he did. So we're gonna look at the matchup. So the team that Aaron has access to is Aegislash, Rayquaza, Mamoswine, Toxapex, Megalopony, Wobbuffet, Kartana, Gligar, Xurkitree, Magmortar, and Azelf. Now, his Z users are Kartana and Xurkitree, and looking at the breakdown of a lot of his weeks, he is very likely to bring Aegislash, Rayquaza, Mamoswine, Megalopony, and then a mixture of either Toxapex, Kartana, or Xurkitree. Things like Magmortar, Toxapex, Azelf, and I believe Wobbuffet have come for like maybe up to 3 weeks, but as few as like 1 week, and then he has been Gligar, period. So, using that as something that I could build upon, we're going to look at my team real quick. We're going to start off, and I'm going to bring Adamant, Choice Banded, Ho-Oh, similar to, actually, same set I brought against Jolt, Sacred Fire, Brave Bird, Earthquake, and Toxic, mostly because his Sacred Fire switch-ins suck. His best resist to it is Toxapex, but, I mean, based on whatever I'm looking at, I just click Earthquake, and with the Adamant Choice Band, if he's like max defense, it's still doing like 75%, and then I can play accordingly after that. Or Brave Bird is there just for general coverage, mostly because it could pretty much bash into a lot of things. And it's probably my best way to knock out Megalopony, assuming he can't knock me out. Like, say I'm at full HP, whatever. Tox is there just for general coverage. Then for something like, I don't know, Gligar, if it's full defense and it comes to this match. But looking at his team, he really doesn't have any fire switch-ins. Like, Rayquaza obviously is going to resist it, but he really can't bank on the burn chance, 50% burn chance. So just overall, I think Toxapex has to come this match, which we see that it does because he can't really afford to not bring a fire resist for Ho-Oh. And I'm glad that I've been able to use Ho-Oh so well. I know I was only able to use it for the last like 3 weeks, but the way I've been able to kind of use it within my team and the support that it's had, I genuinely like this Mon way more than Mega Lucario. So I'm glad that Lars is using it well, be able to use it for playoffs, but I'm glad I was able to take Ho-Oh, and I kind of wish I had Ho-Oh from the start. That's my personal look. It's set to outpace, I believe, Adamant Mamoswine, and there's a reason for that. That means I'm not outpacing Mamoswine if it's Jolly, Xurkitree or Magmortar at base 83. That's kind of okay, mostly because the thing is just there like a basher. If I can get in against something like Mamo, if it's locked into, or I suspect that it's locked into something like an ice move, ground move, something like that, I could get it in against Pex pretty freely and just click an Earthquake or Sacred Fire if he's going to try and switch, but I can just click Earthquake regardless. And Aegislash especially because it is slower, but otherwise, like, just click Sacred Fire whenever I get this thing in freely is just going to be super easy. Next up, we have Scarf Coco, which seems to be pretty common. I brought it against Jolt, but the reason I'm bringing it this week is it's pretty much my Megalopony check, as well as my Rayquaza after 1 D-Dance check. So, max special attack, modest, mostly because his speed tiers pretty much stop at Kartana being a other Scarf user, I should say, at base, I believe, what, 109, I want to say. But then besides that, Megalopony can't be Scarfed. It can run Agility, but that's not a set I've ever seen. So, you know, modest pretty much allows me to outpace Kartana, and then if I click T-Bolt in Electric Terrain, I believe Kartana dies because its Spadef is tissue paper. But T-Bolt, Dazzling Gleam is there for the Megalopony. T-Bolt is there for general coverage. His only immunity is Mamoswine and Gligar if he ever decided to bring it. But in Electric Terrain, I believe Xurkitree is still taking like 33 to 40% from a modest T-Bolt. U-Turn is there for pivot. HP Ice is there for a Scarf check to knock out Rayquaza after, say, I've broken a Sash, or it's gotten some rock damage, or just from 100% based on if he's already gone for like Dragon Ascent or something. So enough speed, I believe, is there to outpace Megalopony. Or it's either Megalopony or it's Scarf Kartana. I think it's actually a combination of both. But Megalopony I think I outpaced regardless, and Scarf Kartana is kind of what I went for. Actually, I think it was Scarf Azelf, because I wanted to get ahead of that base 115. So next up we have pretty much my Xurkitree check, and that's going to be an Adamant. Basically, it's actually the same exact EV spread as the match against Jolt, and that's going to be with that minus the Assault Vest, 220 Spadef, a little bit of HP. A lot of it, almost max attack, Adamant, Conkeldurr. Drain Punch, Earthquake, Mach Punch, Ice Punch. Now, Mach Punch is there for general, priority. It's good for things like Kartana, for Xurkitree, for things like Megalopony. Earthquake is there. It's great coverage for Toxapex, so I can't get hit with Baneful Bunker. It's also there for Xurkitree as well. And then Drain Punch is there just to general survivability to counteract any sort of damage, as well as the Flame Orb. And Ice Punch is there for kind of like a means to hit the Rayquaza in case it tries to set up on me freely, seeing my other 3 moves. One being resisted, one being immune. So that's kind of the idea here. And then with the Flame Orb and max attack with Guts, it pretty much allows me to 2 KO any sort of max defense Toxapex. So this thing is sort of a dual Toxapex check as well as a Xurkitree check, because if I'm burned, he can't go for Z Hypnosis to get his speed up and then allow him to set up like a Tail Glow. And if he's Tail Glow, he can't Tail Glow plus live a Drain Punch plus Mach Punch combo, or Earthquake in general. So that's kind of the idea here with this Conkeldurr. Kind of straightforward, but this is like my best offensive check to his Xurkitree, because I don't want to bring like a passive check. This is on my Gliscor against Xurkitree because it can outspeed, probably should outspeed, and then him getting up something like a Z Hypnosis if I'm already toxic, and then go for HP Ice, or quick Tail Glow if he gets to be faster than me, or whatever it is. I didn't want to bring Gliscor, it just wasn't like my best bring, and I wanted to have more an offensive pressuring approach than a defensive pressuring approach, because his team is extremely offensive in all sorts of scary ways. So next up we have pretty much the closest that I've been bringing all season. I don't think I brought Shell Smash once. That's going to be a max defense, max HP Cloyster with Ice Shard, Liquidation, Icicle Spear to bypass any sort of Sash on Rayquaza, and Protect to kind of bypass any sort of high jump kick shenanigans from a Megalopony. The Protect is there to scout for Scarfers, things like Mamoswine, things like Kartana, things like Xurkitree, perhaps. The Liquidation is there to hit the Mamoswine as well as the Megalopony. Icicle Spear is, like I said, to break the Sash on the Rayquaza. And Ice Shard is there because if he's at -1, he's at like full HP with Rayquaza. Ice Shard takes him down almost all the way with no attack investment. It's also there to get off the priority to knock out Rayquaza after it may try and revenge something else, thing of that nature. So, but I really love how I've been using Cloyster this season, where I've been able to use it as like a hazard remover, or just in general a very defensive check. I mean, hell, it shoot a +2 Never-Ending Nightmare from the Mimikyu against Nexus, and even this match I can see it doing a lot of work, whether it's just like as a tank, like an offensive tank with leftovers, or just in general. So second to last, we have a Scarf Mesprit. This is going to be a timid set, able to outpace, I believe, Megalopony. I think it's set to outspeed just max Jolly Megalopony. So Psychic, U-Turn, Trick, and Stealth Rock. This thing is here to cripple either something like Kartana, Wobbuffet. Max special attack because his Psychic resist is fucking Azelf. And besides that, I can just freely click Psychic, and it's also a very solid backup check to Megalopony as well as Rayquaza, because I am decently bulky, so I can take like a non-boosted Dragon's Ascent, or even possibly like an Outrage or Draco from a Rayquaza if he doesn't have rocks up. Psychic is there because I can pretty much just bash into something, as hard as I possibly can with Psychic. It also can otherwise revenge Megalopony. It could do decent damage to an Aegislash, especially if it's not in shield form. But in shield form, I believe it still has like 36, like 45% or so. And then U-turn is there for pivot. Shrek is there, like I said, to cripple, and Stealth Rocks are extremely important because it can break a sash on the Rayquaza. It can get good damage off on any kind of switching in. And then it can get like 25%, things like, Magmortar or something like that. But overall, just Mesprit this week is a very solid backup check, and I like having the 2 Scarf pivot options to be able to otherwise pressure or ensure that I always have like a security blanket in the back. So having them 2 Scarfers that have very solid coverage across his team, and just one move I can just constantly click if I ever need to, being Psychic, just to do a lot of damage to his team and kind of negate any sort of setup because I am max special attack. You guys may be wondering, you really don't have a Mamoswine check. Well, that's true. I also really don't have a good Aegislash check because I didn't bring Jappy on a Weavile. Again, I really didn't care about that. But my best check to Mamoswine is an Adamant max HP, max defense, Adamant, like I said, Scizor with leftovers. Now I was kind of going to go for a Berry of some nature, but looking at the calcs, Bullet Punch is doing like 75% max to a Mamoswine with a little bit of HP investment. But U-turn is there for pivot. I can get rid of rocks if Mamoswine tries to set them up. And then I can roost up because the way I have this set, if he's Adamant Life Orb, I'll see it because of the roll for Earthquake is like 65 to like 75% or whatever it is. But I'll see that and I'll know that he's Adamant Life Orb, which means I can just click Bullet Punch and get off a huge chunk of damage before I would go down myself. I could defog away rocks if he does get them up, or T-Spikes or whatever. But if he's Jolly Scarf, if he's Jolly anything, I take max 50.5% with no rocks damage, which is great because that means this Scizor can always check a Mamoswine after I would roost up or whatever, kind of pressure him out and make sure that this thing stays safe as sort of like a background check and does have solid priority for things like Mamoswine, for things like I can revenge an Azelf, I can revenge I can get good damage off of Megalopony, and he really can't hit me unless he has Fire Punch. I can, revenge or otherwise KO a very weakened Rayquaza or a -1 Rayquaza after Dragon's Ascent. Overall, I think this is my best offensive check to Mamoswine. I don't want to bring... Besides that, there really wasn't anything on my team. Like, obviously, Stone Edge for Araquanid. And then, besides that, I just didn't see anything that was really great on my team. So this Scizor was kind of like my answer to that. And something I've enjoyed how I'm using Scizor now that I got rid of Mega Lucario. It's kind of like a mix between an offensive role where I could set up, where I could pivot, click Bullet Punch, and also like a defogger to supplement things like Coco, things like Cloyster, to aid Ho-Oh, but also in an offensive way that it still allows me for pivot, offensive options, and more of like a tankier role, which is kind of like how I've realized I like tankier defense, not like Wish Pashas and bullshit like that, but like tankier defense that supplements my offense while aiding, or while still being offensive themselves, not being passive. So that's kind of like what I've learned a lot from this season. Looking at what he brought, we see he brought Aegislash, Rayquaza, the Mamoswine, Megalopony, the Xurkitree, and the Toxapex. So he forewent, I believe, the Kartana, which I also kind of expected, but we don't see Wobbuffet, we don't see Magmortar, we don't see Azelf, we don't see Gligar. So kind of expected what I've seen most of the season. And looking at his team, he really doesn't have a good lead against Mesprit. Mostly because I thought he'd lead off with something like Mamoswine, which allowed me to just click rocks myself, assuming he would as well, or I can just click Psychic to get off a lot of damage against him. If he led off with Megalopony, he can go for Fake Out, but then I could stay in again as he tried to bypass rocks. But if I click Psychic, really doesn't have a great switch in for it. I mean, Shield form, Aegislash would take like I said, 30-44% if he wasn't max special defense. But overall, I thought leading Mesprit was not really a bad play. I could U-turn if it's like a negative matchup. I can click Psychic if it's a good one. And then I click Rocks if I don't really see a downside to whatever he leads up with. So we're going to go into the match real quick. And I'm going to, like I said, I was looking forward to playing Aaron. Finally got the opportunity to. And I think this is going to be a very enjoyable match. Like I said, a lot riding on him for this match. And I just kind of want to finish off the season with a win because these past 5 weeks have been fucking grueling. So he leads off with the Aegislash as I lead off with my Mesprit. Now, the Aegislash lead pretty much means that I can't really stay in. He can go for Shadow Sneak if he wanted to get damage before I would U-turn out. Doesn't really do anything, but this does allow me to pretty much freely get into my Ho-Oh, which I finally found a good nickname for. Brightburn, I think, is a very solid nickname based on its shiny color, just how I think it's cool and not like fucking Phoenix or whatever it is. People or Ho 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 like Santa. Stupid nicknames. So If he was a man and he had head smash there, he would have clicked it right there, and I would have just blown the fuck away my Ho-Oh. But he ends up clicking Shadow Ball, which I know I can heal off with the Regenerator. And because Earthquake was a no downside play, because obviously Aegislash is weak to it as well as Toxapex, and I figure anything else on his team that wasn't named Rayquaza was not going to appreciate Choice Banded Adamant Earthquake. He goes into Toxapex. It does, like we said, 75%, which means he's max HP, max defense. I'm going to switch out, mostly because I don't want to get toxic, but also because I figured here that I can get out into my Coco, and I actually sort of expect him to double out into Rayquaza. Seeing that damage, I maybe thought that he could draw that I was a Choice Banded variant, and I kind of wanted to get a hop on him in case he tried to double switch into his Rayquaza, but instead he ends up staying and he clicks Scald, doesn't get the burn against my Coco, but again, here, I expect him to go out into something to take the T-Ball, something like Mamoswine, which he doesn't, he stays in, which, you know, does, that U-turn did half leftovers damage, so he ends up staying in. I could have knocked him out with T-Bolt there, but after this animation goes through, I'll tell you why I didn't want to do that, especially because I'm glad I clicked U-turn the way that I did. If I clicked T-Bolt there, that was a free capability of him to get into his Mamoswine. That possibly would have allowed him to get up his rocks. Alternatively, could have gotten him in Rayquaza, knowing that the rocks weren't up, his Sash would probably still be intact, and the T-Bolt probably would have did a neutral, we'll say 35%, right? Maybe upwards like 55%. But if he clicked D-Dance, I mean, I could stay in again, but based on whatever bulk he had, if it did less than 50%, he was at +1. Really didn't want to play around with any sort of like Rayquaza shenanigans, him setting up. Additionally, he could have went to Xurkitree, and with Conkeldurr not having his Flame Orb up yet, I wouldn't have been able to adequately like take, if he was like Z Hypnosis, I would have to bank that he missed the Hypnosis, not put me to sleep. Flame Orb would activate, which means that he would still be a +1, and then I would be able to go for Earthquake or whatever. So I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm glad I kind of played around this Toxapex a little bit more aggressively, but smart in a way, I guess I'd say. So I click U-turn, I go on to Mespers, he clicks Sludge Wave. Sludge Wave is very interesting. I doubt it would have done all that much damage to the Coco, especially because it had a little bit of bulk investment, but also Toxapex offense. Its stats in that, that area are not that good. So I go into my Mesprit. And I took the Sludge Wave, and I'm going to go for Stealth Rock. This allows me just to, like I said, break Sash, and unless he has Defog on his, let me see, I guess on his Rayquaza, he's not getting rid of rocks. So he ends up going there for Recover, as I click rocks. This Toxapex pretty much is almost back at full HP, but that really doesn't matter, because what I thought here is if he clicks Scald again, or clicks Sludge Wave, it would allow me to get my Flame Orb up for my Conkeldurr, which would, again, allow me to better take on the Xurkitree. But instead it clicks Toxic, which is a little bit not good, mostly because I want to have the Flame Orb over the Toxic damage. But it doesn't really matter because it kind of achieves the same goal, where I can just click Earthquake, and this is going to do upwards of like 75%. Actually more than that, looks like 80% or so. So that means he can't Recover Stall me. I mean, granted, he can get 2 rounds of Recover, plus Toxic damage on me, but it's not going to change the difference that I can just Earthquake again and knock him out, mostly because he's pretty much at the range of the damage I did with the first Earthquake. He can switch out here into Rayquaza if he chose to do so, but the thing is, then I'll click Ice Punch to try and weaken him, and with rocks up, he can't, go freely for a Dragon Dance. If he wanted to get the Rayquaza in, he would have to come in before I set up rock. So I click Earthquake again. See that I knock out the Toxapex. I think Toxapex on his team had been kind of a hampering, mostly because I think he struggled basically specifically against Danza, where Danza was able to utilize his Palkia to pretty much just bash in the Toxapex. In this situation, I had about 3 or 4 mons that could take advantage of Toxapex based on matchups, things like that. So I'm kind of glad that the game went the way it did, where I was able to face Toxapex, take it on an offensive way that allowed me to not put myself in a bad situation, and it allowed me to maintain a little momentum and a little bit. I got to see his full moveset and kind of determine its set overall. So he goes into Xurkitree. Now 50-50 here was clicking Earthquake or clicking Mach Punch. I thought, because I was looking at how much HP I was at after he had gotten off the 3 rounds of Toxic, I was looking at the damage, and if he was modest Life Orb or just modest Z move Xurkitree, if he just clicked Z move, Mach Punch was my best move because it did 58 to like 68% or so. But instead, I end up getting a crit with my Mach Punch, and that puts him down to below 25% or so. And basically, it allows him to as we see right here. I get the crit with the Mach Punch, does solid damage, but he's not able to substitute. Now that kind of sucked, but I guess the only way around this, he would have been down to pretty much about the HP he's at right now. I would have been able to click Mach Punch against the first sub, break the second sub, as he'd probably knock me out. But then I have the Scarf Coco as well as the Scarf Mesper to come in then and click Psychic. Because pretty much you have to switch out or let it die, which kind of basically what happened. The only thing that would have changed is I'd be at 5 Pokemon instead of 6, and it would have been a little bit more playing around to otherwise claim the kill against Xurkitree or whatever else wants to take damage. So he ends up going for Shadow Sneak with his Egg Slash as I get knocked out. So first KO of the day, but like I said, that if at any point his Egg Slash is in against, or is free, allows me to get my Ho-Oh in. I know 10 out of 10 times I'm able to outspeed it. None of my moves make contacts at Brave Bird, but there's no fucking way I'm clicking Brave Bird against an Egg Slash. I know it has King Shield. Earthquake doesn't make contacts, and neither does Sacred Fire. So even though they are both physical, I'm able to go ahead and click Sacred Fire freely. Stock Specs is gone. Nothing else really wants to come in and take it, especially with the burn chance. So he does a little bit of damage with a Shadow Sneak. I click Sacred Fire, I connect, and I'm going to knock out the Egg Slash. So kind of a one-for-one thing here, but a lot of what I wanted to do early game has been achieved. A lot of confidence with this team and how it was built. And right here, I know he outspeeds me, but based on whatever he is, if he's Life Orb, he'll 100% knock me out with a Dragon's Ascent. If he's Jolly, it's more of a roll, even though it's still kind of in his favor. Does click Dragon's Ascent. But even, if he knocks me out, I can get a free switch and whatever else. He does knock me out, but in the case that he didn't, I'd be clicking Sacred Fire as he was at -1, and it would have done upwards of... I think it would have knocked him out after the rocks damage, which is kind of impressive, even though, Sacred Fire was a resistant move, but with the band and adamant nature, Ho is still hitting pretty fucking hard. So I end up going into my Cloyster, which I know is my dedicated check for this Rayquaza. Can't switch, or he can't set up, so it's going to force him to switch. I end up clicking Ice Shard. Now, I almost clicked Icicle Spear here, which actually would have knocked out regular Lopunny prior to getting its fighting type. So if I clicked Icicle Spear there, I probably would have knocked out Lop. But he's going to Mega Evolve, and if he clicks Ice Jump Kick, I'm not in range if I Jump Kick. And I was clicking Protect in case he had something like Bulk Up. So he clicks Power Punch, which is a little bit odd, but I think from right there, he's able to see that I am max defense because a regular Power Punch would have done like upwards like 45, maybe 50%. So I'm going to click Icicle Spear here. I do connect. Obviously, with Skill Link, I'm going to get the 5 times hit. And with the, I want to say it's like 10-15% rolls per Icicle Spear hit. That does put him down to pretty much Ice Shard range. So effectively, I'm able to check and kind of almost recover on this Megalopony. If he has Quick Attack, he'll be able to get off a good like 25, maybe 30% if he's Adamant at +1 after the Power Punch, but instead he doesn't show it. Maybe just a Fake Out. So he does end up getting knocked out with the Ice Shard, putting Cloyster up to 1 KO, which is very impressive because considering I had a Choice Banded Ho-Oh, a Scarf Coco, Scarf Mesper Max Special Attack, and my very bulky Conch, seeing Cloyster get the kill there was actually kind of cool. He clicks Stone Edge, and this is going to do maybe max 50% because I am max defense, which he definitely has to know right there. I'm going to click Liquidation because I know it does the most amount of damage to a Mamoswine, and we see it does like a solid like 65, almost 70%. And I know I can live a second Stone Edge even through a crit based on my defense investment, and he unfortunately misses, which this kind of only would have bypassed a little bit of the differential because his last one is going to be Rayquaza. So if he had Extreme Speed, he would be able to knock me out based on whatever HP I was at. But I click Protect to bypass any sort of Extreme Speed damage, and I would have been able to stay out of probably that range, barring a crit. I knock him out with a second Liquidation, and finally, I'm going to wrap up this game with an Ice Shard. It's going to knock out Rayquaza 51%, I guess you could say, and that's going to be a 4-0 win for the Sharpedos. Now, I finally grabbed a win that I hadn't had for the past like 5 or so weeks. I'm glad I was able to do it in the final week. I'm glad I was able to finish off this season with some positivity, even though it wasn't you could say the best season for me, or I really didn't like my team, obviously, which was made very apparent. I didn't like a lot of the matches that I was playing, whether it was from circumstances like the hacks or just like how the game was conducted or how I played. But I'm glad I was able to finish this game off positively. I'm glad I was able to use this team in a way that I felt comfortable and I felt offensively effective. And I was glad I was able to play someone who I wanted to play for a very long time. So thank you, Aaron, for the game. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, that knocks you out of playoffs because you lost 4-0, because Danzel, I believe, lost 3-0 for his match. The ranking that you were, Danzel was -1 with his record, and you were -5 or 4 with your record. So it does knock him out of playoffs, unfortunately, putting Danza in the 4 slot. So congratulations to Danza for making playoffs. Congratulations to all his fans for, you know, being happy that he went from 0-4 to playoffs, which is pretty awesome. You know, good or props to him. Actually, I think he's 5-1 in his last weeks because he ended up losing to Jolt in week 10. So, you know, that's going to be the season. I enjoyed the team a lot after I got Ho-Oh. I didn't enjoy the team for a very long time prior to getting Ho-Oh, so I'm glad I was able to make the trade and that it worked in my favor. Good game to Aaron. I think it was a pretty decently played match. Unfortunately, I don't think the matchup was I guess in his favor, so to say, especially with how Ho-Oh and Mesprit, things like Conk, were able to kind of like threaten his team. But I'm interested to see his match whenever that goes up. I'm interested to see what you guys think after I made the transactions and how I was playing beforehand. And yeah, I mean that's the end of the this season of the GBA. I won't be going any farther, but I'll still be helping with and running things in the background with the playoffs and everything. So you guys still see me around the fan server and everything. So hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And with that being said, I will see you guys for whenever I upload next. I'm not in any leagues after this. I kind of want to get together a monotype, like maybe Wi-Fi, maybe Showdown League, some sort of fun. But I don't know if anyone's going to want to do that leading into Sword and Shield since it's already June. And yeah, I don't know. But we'll see. All right. So that being said, hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys whenever. Bye.